The Republic of Congo votes in presidential election. At least 5 people have died after shells fell on a hospital in Syria. And thousands are evacuated in Australia as Sydney braces for its worst floods in decades. Hello and welcome to teleSUR English. I'm José Daniel López in Quito, Ecuador, and this is from the south. The Republic of Congo had gone to the polls to vote in a presidential election that had been boycotted by the main opposition. Access to internet and social media was cut hours before polls opened at 7 a.m. local time. The incumbent Denis Sassou is widely expected to win against 6 contenders led by the economist Guy Bryce Parafitno-Covelas, who revealed Saturday that he is gravely ill with COVID-19. After first coming to power in 1979, Sassou Nguesso was forced to introduce multi-party elections in 1991 and was defeated at the ballot box a year later. But he returned to power in 1997 following a prolonged civil war. He has won every election since, which the opposition have mostly slammed as fraudulent. Thousands of Tanzanians have gathered in the capital Dar es Salaam to pay their last respects to the late President John Magufuli. Government officials, church leaders, and security forces gathered for the funeral service at the Uhuru Stadium. The Tanzanian leader died last week of a heart attack at the age of 61. The country's former Vice President Samia Suluhu Hassan has taken over as the new head of state.
Frankly speaking, he was a really good person to us. We shall miss and remember him a lot for all the good things he did to us, especially me. I shall remember him a lot, especially women. He really advocated for us when it comes to health, but he also decided to offer free education at all levels. I really ask and hope the new president, Samia Suluhu, will keep up all the good things Magufuli used to do during his time.
In Syria, at least 5 people have died and 5 others got injured after artillery shells fired from government-controlled areas hit a hospital. According to the Syrian Observatory for Human Rights, the rockets landed at the entrance and in the courtyard of the hospital in Atarev, a town in rural western Aleppo. The explosion killed at least 5 civilians, including a child and a woman, and it also injured medical staff. Attacks on hospitals are common in the Syria conflict and are mostly blamed on government and allied forces. The US-based Physicians for Human Rights have documented 598 attacks on at least 350 separate facilities in Syria since March 2011. The Palestinian Health Ministry has begun administering its first coronavirus vaccines received through the global COVAX initiative. The World Health Organization and its partners who run the COVAX program delivered 61,400 vaccines to the Palestinian authorities on Wednesday, with 21,300 of them were shipped to the blockade Hamas-controlled Gaza Strip. The other 40,000 shots are a boost to the West Bank, where the Palestinian Authority has been struggling to purchase vaccines. The vaccines delivered under COVAX were Pfizer and AstraZeneca rolled out in the Palestinian territories for the first time.
Absolutely not enough vaccines at the moment in Gaza, so that's why we're only prioritizing the globally agreed groups, such as the healthcare workers, particularly the frontline healthcare workers, the elderly, and the people with the underlying health conditions. So far, we have very few vaccines available in Gaza, and therefore we cannot yet start with mass vaccination campaign for the overall population. We only focus on the priority groups.
Thousands of Israelis have rallied in Jerusalem to demonstrate against Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu ahead of next Tuesday's general election. Prime Minister Netanyahu is being accused of corruption and failure to manage the coronavirus pandemic. The elections, therefore, in less than 2 years, are widely seen as a referendum on Netanyahu, Israel's longest-serving prime minister. The polls show Netanyahu's right-wing Likud party in the lead, projecting that it will win around 30 seats in the 120-member parliament. The centrist Yesh Atid party, the largest in the anti-Netanyahu bloc, is projected to win around 20 seats. Around 100 Lebanese mothers have marched against the country's ruling class in Beirut on the eve of Mother's Day. The mothers who marched along with their children from an area once on Beirut's dividing line during the 1979-1990 civil war to the port, which saw a catastrophic explosion last year, where more than 200 people died and thousands more were injured in the incident, which was blamed on official negligence. Lebanon is battling its worst economic crisis in decades. The national currency has lost almost 90% of its value against the dollar on the black market, and consumer prices have soared. As a result, some 55 of Lebanese now live below poverty line.
I am here to represent mothers' voices. Every Lebanese mother from 1975 until today, every persevering and patient mother, every immigrant mother or whose children were forced to immigrate, every mother of a martyr or injured, every mother who is a medic, a nurse, a doctor or a teacher in this current period of death.
Pakistan's Prime Minister Imran Khan has tested positive for the coronavirus 2 days after he received his first vaccine dose. According to his doctor, the Prime Minister has quarantined himself at his private home on a hilltop in the Islamabad suburbs. The diagnosis comes as the country grapples with a deadly third wave of a virus that has already killed nearly 13,800 people from more than 620,000 infections, although limited testing suggests real figures are likely much higher.
Might have been in the past. Right now, I can tell you.
Security forces in Myanmar have shot dead an anti-coup protester as demonstrators tried to march through small narrow streets to avoid confronting riot police. One man was killed on Sunday in the central city of Mungwa, and at least 2 people were injured in a clash with security forces at barricades. Meanwhile, protesters in Yangon's northern Insane Township adopted the tactic of marching through small narrow streets to avoid confronting the security forces as they stage a rally. Myanmar has been in turmoil since soldiers ousted civilian leader Aung San Suu Kyi last month, triggering nationwide protests demanding a return to democracy.
Now the military have threatened to shoot us if we were to gather or stage a protest. But if we don't come out and protest and show how much we hate them, they will think they've already won. Now, we'll try to protest as much as we can. We'll let the military know how much we don't agree with them. We don't want them, we won't accept them, and we hate them very much.
Thai police have used water cannons and tear gas to disperse anti-government protesters in Bangkok. Demonstrators demanded new elections, amendments of the constitution, and called for an end to intimidation of government critics. The protests against the government of Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha started early 2020 and were later begun, including demands for a reform to the Thai monarchy. We'll take a short break now. Don't go away. Welcome back. Ecuador's Health Minister Rodolfo Farfán resigned this Friday as prosecutors investigate allegations of favoritism in the rollout of coronavirus vaccines. Farfán resigned after police raided the health ministry and a hospital in the capital Quito as part of his investigation. He was named health minister on March 1st, replacing Juan Carlos Ceballos, who resigned in late February while under investigation after participated in an inoculation effort at a nursing home where his mother lives. Accusations of nepotism in the distribution of COVID-19 vaccines have caused political turmoil in several South American countries, including Ecuador, Peru, and Argentina. In Brazil, Rio's iconic beaches have been closed to the public to curb the spread of COVID-19. This is the first time Rio's beaches were closed again since they reopened in July 2020. But Brazilian authorities are looking to curb a recent spike in numbers of hospitalizations, with the health system already working at full capacity. Military police and municipal ward patrol the beaches, asking those who ignore the new restrictions to leave. According to the Ministry of Health, Brazil recorded 2,742 deaths in the last 24 hours, reaching over 290,000 deaths since the beginning of the pandemic.
It's the time to reduce the circulation of people in the streets. It's not the time to do sports on the beach. It's not the time to divide in the ocean. Now, it's the time to stay home. We have a new variant of the virus, the P1 variant, that's circulating in the city intensively, a new variant that can be worse than the one before.
Political parties in Venezuela are preparing for the upcoming regional electoral process. At the same time, institutions continue with the renovation processes or the confirmation of new authorities. We have more details with our correspondent Leonel Ratamal.
Political leaders from 20 opposition parties in Venezuela recently signed an agreement to stand united in the upcoming elections for regional governors and mayors that will take place in Venezuela this year, following the path of those who participated in the parliamentary elections of December 2020. They seek to isolate extremist opposition groups that promote violence or a total boycott of the vote.
We do not support insurrectional or unconstitutional methods, or foreign invasions, or other countries harming our sovereignty, in detriment of our people, who have only prevented us from successfully taking power, prolonging the suffering of the most vulnerable and dispossessed.
The international community is called to pay attention to these processes, and not to those who continue to demand sanctions against the country.
The Venezuelan people are peaceful. We believe in our constitution and we want to solve things through the constitutional path. These actions are by a minority that does not represent us. We are more than 30 million people. The international community does not have to sit down and talk with just 5 parties. We are more than that. We are more than 30 opposition parties. They have to listen to all of us, the population in general. We are in crisis and these sanctions have aggravated the situation.
This is happening alongside the work of several parliamentary commissions, such as that in charge of carrying out the process to renew the National Electoral Council. 75 nominations for rector of the Electoral Council have been accepted, and the process is still open to renew this state power.
For both this committee and this National Assembly, the only objective is that we can live in peace, that we take a step to distance ourselves from those who have made a living from violence, and think the solution is not democratic. For this committee and this assembly, democracy is the only path in an electoral center.
All this is part of a process of dialogue and normalization between the public authorities of the Venezuelan state after the installation of the new National Assembly on January 5th. Commissions investigating the management of the former legislative administration are joining efforts of the Dialogue Committee, which seeks meeting points between the different sectors of society. This analyst explains it the following way.
A big debate is happening right now in Venezuela for the relegitimization not only of the National Electoral Council as the regulatory body, but also the different branches of the state to move forward as a single voice, without denying the different voices within Venezuelan society, but with a need to see ourselves, to recognize ourselves as a single country.
Meetings with business representatives, churches, universities, political parties, and different social and economic sectors in the country have already taken place as part of this process.
36,000 doses of the AstraZeneca COVID-19 vaccine arrived in Paraguay on Friday through the World Health Organization's COVAX platform. The COVID-19 upsurge has pushed the South American country's health system to the verge of collapse. According to health authorities, the doses will be first administered to health workers. The batch is in addition to 20,000 doses of the Chinese Sinovac vaccine donated by Chile and 4,000 Sputnik 5 doses purchased from Russia, which will allow the vaccination of 90% of medical personnel involved in the fight against the pandemic. Argentina's Supreme Court of Justice has rejected an appeal filed by Google and ruled in favor of Vice President Cristina Fernandez regarding her defamation lawsuit against the internet giant. The country's top court rejected the appeal filed in October 2020, in which Google requested its intervention to review a previous ruling that Google must provide access to its multinational server to collect evidence in the case filed by the Vice President. The case surrounds a search result from the engine in which her title appeared as the thief of the Argentine nation instead of Vice President. Following the latest ruling, Google must hand over all the data associated to Christina Kirchner's name from May 16, 2020. Mexican President Andrés Manuel López Obrador expressed gratitude to his U.S. counterpart Joe Biden on Friday for sending 2.7 million doses of the AstraZeneca vaccine to the country. López Obrador added that with the shipment of vaccines from the United States, plus those that have arrived from Russia, China, and the Pfizer lab, his government is making progress in the national vaccination plan. The White House said it planned to ship millions of doses of AstraZeneca's COVID vaccine to Mexico and Canada. To date, Mexico has received over 7 million vaccine doses of different brands, of which it has administered over 4.7 million. More stories coming up. Stay with us. Welcome back. In Australia, Sydney residents living in low-lying areas have been evacuated as the city braces for its worst floods in decades. Evacuation orders came after the Warragamba Dam, which provides much of the drinking water for Sydney, spilled over Saturday afternoon following record rainfall. Floodwaters have already risen in several areas, prompting mass evacuations, and officials said another 4,000 people could be told to leave their homes in the coming days. Thousands of women have taken to the streets in Istanbul to protest against Turkey's decision to withdraw from the landmark European treaty protecting women from violence. The government sparked domestic and international outrage after announcing the decision on Saturday, the latest victory for conservatives in Erdogan's nationalist party and their allies, who argued the treaty damaged family unity. The 2011 Istanbul Convention, signed by 45 countries and the European Union, requires governments to adopt legislation prosecuting domestic violence and similar abuse, as well as martial rape and female genital mutilation. Conservatives have claimed the treaty damages family unity, encourages divorce, and that its reference to equality were being used by the LGBT community to gain broader acceptance in society.
As women, we now think that the withdrawal from the Istanbul Convention is a direct attack on women's rights and a direct attack on the rights of modern young women in particular. This, of course, makes us feel insecure and like our rights are appropriated by the government.
We were struggling every day so that the Istanbul Convention would be implemented and women would live. We now hear that the Istanbul Convention has been completely repealed. We are very angry today. We can no longer bear even one death of a woman. We do not have any tolerance left for this.
European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen has heavily condemned Turkey's withdrawal from the Istanbul Convention. According to women's rights groups, at least last year 300 women were murdered in Turkey, and the rate is speeding up, with 77 killed already this year. Health workers from Kosovo had to travel to Albania to receive their COVID-19 vaccines. Kosovo remains the only European country that has not yet started to vaccinate its population, but the Albanian government decided to help out. On March 20, about 200 Kosovar doctors were bused to Kukuz, an Albanian town close to the border with Kosovo, to get vaccinated against COVID-19. Kosovo is yet to receive its first batch of AstraZeneca vaccines through the World Health Organization's COVAX initiative. German police have clashed with protesters at a mass demonstration against coronavirus restrictions in the city of Kassel. Police used batons and fired water cannon at people trying to break through barriers and throwing bottles. The protests attracted between 15 to 20,000 demonstrators from all the political spectrum. Some of them say that they don't believe the pandemic is real, while others claim the curbs imposed to stop the spread of the virus infringe on their civil rights. Chancellor Angela Merkel and the leaders of Germany's 16 federal states are meeting on Monday to discuss the next step in the pandemic fight. Meanwhile, in United Kingdom, protesters also scuffled with police in central London during a demonstration against lockdown measures. Thousands of people took part in the demonstration despite warnings from authorities not to congregate and risk spreading the coronavirus. England has been under a strict lockdown since January, with all non-essential businesses closed and people asked to stay at home. A long-dormant volcano in southwestern Iceland have erupted. Iceland's Civil Protection Agency says Saturday that has lowered the threat level as lava flow from the Fagradal's mountain volcano seems to be lessening. The Department of Emergency Management said it was not anticipating evacuations because the volcano is in a remote valley, 2.5 kilometers from the nearest road. The Fagradal's mountain volcano had been dormant for 6,000 years, but there were been signs of a possible eruption recently, with earthquakes occurring daily for the past 3 weeks.
We are excited because it's not so heavy or grave. It's not any danger or nothing like that. So I think people are excited and also they are not afraid of it.
We've just been monitoring the area. First, people were not allowed to walk to the possible volcano area, but now people are allowed to walk. So basically, we're just monitoring, making sure that people park safely.
And we come to the end of this news brief. You can find this and many other stories in our website at telesurenglish.net. And don't forget to join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. For TeleSUR English, I'm Jose Daniel Lopez. Thank you for watching.